All right, and DD India's Jessica Taneja joins us for more. Hi, Jessica. This visit by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is very important and indeed is expected to give a boost to the relationship between New Delhi and Washington. A while back, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar and Mr. Rubio held bilateral talks. What details do you have on this?
Well, their talks, as they said, was still ongoing. They had briefly come to address the media and take some questions. And as you heard from both the External Affairs Dr. S. Jaishankar as well as Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the discussions are still continuing at Hyderabad House as we speak. But what they did tell us about certain outcomes when it comes to the India-U.S. ties and, of course, how India is an important partner, not just in the Indo-Pacific, but in a broader sense as well. The strategic convergences that both spoke about. Particularly given the current geopolitical flux that we're all in. Of course, the conversation also focused on the crisis in West Asia along with the conflict in Ukraine. Apart from that, they also discussed energy cooperation. You'd recall right before Secretary Rubio were to visit India, he had told the reporters back in the States that India and the United States could look towards more energy cooperation. India is already diversifying its energy imports. It has been doing so for a while now. But given the current context and the current situation that the entire world is in, of course, India and the United States committed to enhancing their trade relations. Earlier this year, an interim trade deal was announced where 50% tariffs were slashed to 18%. But the discussions are still ongoing because there was a verdict by the U.S. Supreme Court on Donald Trump's sanction imposition as well. So a lot of things changing on the ground, but both the countries are trying to prioritize a trade deal that could benefit both. Because United States is one of India's largest trading partners, and certainly there's a lot to be ironed out and discussed, and what roadmap should the two have in the future is also something they're going to be looking at. But what we do understand at this point is that it's the energy cooperation. There's the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting that is going to take place on Tuesday.
Right.
And apart from that, how important India is to the Indo-Pacific strategy of the United States, as it has been since it was stressed by the Trump administration in his first term.
Jessica, you just mentioned energy cooperation. Any information on the talks regarding the energy cooperation, given the current geopolitical circumstances where the world, of course, is marked by supply chain anxieties, conflicts and oil supply disruptions?
That's been the concern not just for our government, but many other energy importing countries. And if you heard Dr. S. Jaishankar during that joint press conference with Secretary Rubio, there was a sense given that India is doing its best when it comes to sourcing energy at this particular point in crisis. And India has been diversifying as it had in the past to sort of shield itself from such external shocks, at least to a point where Indians have access to energy resources, because it's important, not just LPG, LNG, as well as crude. India does import 80% of its needs. So certainly that came up in the conversation, but nothing more coherent than what we were given to understand in terms of what level of cooperation are we talking about. Are there going to be long-term contracts when it comes to energy supplies from the United States? We know one on LNG, but we're expecting another maybe, but we'll wait for those announcements and to be made official as to what really goes into that cooperation further. But from the Indian side, it is continuing to source energy as and when it benefits Indians and to secure the energy needs of its countrymen.
You're absolutely right, Jessica. India is diversifying its energy basket, especially in the given current geopolitical circumstances. Mr. Rubio, Jessica, will also be joining the table alongside the foreign ministers of Japan and Australia and, of course, India for Quad Foreign Ministers meeting. How pivotal is this meeting when you talk about Quad as a group and the Indo-Pacific region, which is of high importance in terms of global trade?
You see, the stress when it comes to Quad Foreign Ministers meeting was on how all these countries, Japan, India, United States, Australia, are maritime democracies. And that sort of gives us a sense of the discussions that are going to be extremely important for all the four countries to have that Indo-Pacific strategy in place. They already had one, which was announced many years ago by the then Biden administration, carried forward by the current one. And if you recall, before 2017, it was the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting, but soon after that, the leaders also met for the Quad meeting, and that has sort of become a routine and India is expected to host the Quad meeting this year. But the focus really has been on the Indo-Pacific frontier and also making sure that maritime commerce is unimpeded is the message here.
Definitely. Jessica, people-to-people ties also play a very important role when you talk about the relationship between two countries, and here we are talking about India and the United States. Can you tell us about the people-to-people ties, where they stand as of now, and what discussions were held regarding these particular ties?
Well, people-to-people ties are always an ongoing and an evolving aspect of the relationship that India has had with all three Quad other members, and in that sense, India has, of course, a huge diaspora present in all these countries, especially the United States. Of course, that engagement continues from the Indian side, and a lot of presence of Indian companies and the American companies present here in India. So those ties also facilitate people-to-people ties, and there is, of course, a lot of cultural exchange that has happened over the last many decades, and that continues to grow. And in that sense, both with Australia and Japan, the situation and the current evolution of that cultural relationship remains the same.
All right, Jessica, thank you so much for giving us those details and your analysis. We leave it there. Thank you so much.